2013, Los Angeles. A struggling actor with a handful of forgettable credits sits down with two brothers from his old college network. He pitches them on a film financing company called 1 Productions, 1 in a Million. His name is Zachary Horwitz. His stage name is Zach Avery, and he has never closed a single distribution deal in his life. Here's what he understood instead. Film licensing deals are private contracts. There is no public registry that tracks who actually holds the rights to what. No regulator checks them. No exchange lists them. If you claim you have a deal with Netflix, the only way anyone finds out you're lying is if they call Netflix directly. Almost nobody ever does. So by 2015, the pitch was simple. 1 bought international rights to small films, then resold those rights to Netflix and HBO for a profit. He had signed agreements. He had email threads with network executives discussing terms. Every one of them was forged. The money came in through promissory notes, plain IOUs between Horwitz and individual investors. No broker, no prospectus, no SEC filing required, because private notes sold directly to people you know don't trigger the same registration rules that public securities do. The first checks came from friends at Indiana University, where he'd graduated in 2010. Those friends later formed JJMT Capital, an unregistered investment fund that would pour more money into 1 than anyone else alive. One unregistered fund, lending into one unverified company, built entirely on paperwork nobody outside the deal was ever required to check. This is what regulators call affinity fraud. Not because friendship is the crime, because the exemptions that let small companies raise money fast, without registration, assume the lender already knows the borrower well enough to do their own checking. Horwitz wasn't exploiting a gap in the law, he was exploiting the exact assumption the law was built on. Horwitz promised returns north of 30% a year. When the licensing deals came due and the platforms never paid, because there were no platforms and there was no deal, he didn't stop. He forged more emails, fake executives, fake delays, and he used those forgeries to get JJMT to send fresh capital, which he used to pay off the investors he already owed. Paul funded Peter. Peter funded the next round of Pauls. Nobody at any bank flagged it, because none of this money ever touched a bank's underwriting desk. It moved investor to fund, fund to company, company to forged contract. At every link in that chain, verification was somebody else's job. Over 5 years, the scheme pulled in $690 million. Horwitz spent it accordingly. A $6 million house in Beverlywood, a celebrity interior designer, private jets, repeat trips to Vegas. None of that spending tripped a single alarm either. Private note investors aren't owed audited financials. There's no requirement that 1 show its books to anyone outside the company. The entire structure ran on trust, by design, because that's exactly what private placements are built for. This held for years for one simple reason. Nobody at Netflix or HBO had any reason to know Horwitz's name, until somebody finally just called and asked. February 2021. Netflix's director of content litigation sends Horwitz a cease and desist. The company had found the forged documents elsewhere, unrelated to any audit, and told him directly that no relationship had ever existed. He kept going anyway. By April, the FBI had sworn declarations from Netflix and Warner Media, both confirming in writing that neither company had ever done business with this man. On April 6, 2021, agents arrested him on wire fraud charges. Final investor losses came to $227 million. In October, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of securities fraud. February 14, 2022. Judge Mark C. Scarsi sentences him to 20 years in federal prison, plus $230,361,884 in restitution. He will almost certainly die owing. He's currently held at FCI Terminal Island. This case never forced new regulation the way a sovereign heist might. It didn't need to. The private note market that funded Horwitz still operates exactly the way it did in 2013. No registration, no mandatory audit, no third party required to confirm a single claim before money changes hands. That's not a loophole someone forgot to close. That's the system working as designed, for legitimate small businesses that can't afford SEC registration. Horwitz didn't break that system. He found the one version of it built entirely on trust and walked in without bringing any.